This is all your fault! Get that camera out of my face right now!
My grandfather used to say that good fences make good neighbors. But he never met Brenda. If he had, he probably would have built a wall, not a fence. I own 500 acres in the Pacific Northwest. It's not a hobby farm. It's my livelihood. We grow winter wheat and hay. Every inch of that soil pays for the roof over my head. It's serious business. Heavy machinery, tight schedules, and zero tolerance for nonsense. 2 months ago, the plot of land next to my northern border was sold. A developer from the city bought it, built a generic modern farmhouse that looked like a spaceship, and moved in. Her name was Brenda. I met her on a Tuesday. I was out on the tractor, prepping the north field for seeding. It had been raining for a week straight. The ground was soft, what we call gumbo mud. If you stop moving, you sink. I came around the bend, near the property line, and slammed on the brakes. My heart dropped. Sitting right there, 20 feet past my property line, inside my field, was a pristine, white luxury SUV. A Range Rover. It was parked dead center in the only access road I had to the back 40 acres. I killed the engine. Silence. I climbed down, my boots sinking into the muck, and walked over. No one was in the car. It was locked. I looked up the hill to the new house. A woman was standing on her deck, sipping coffee, watching me. I waved. I pointed at the car. She didn't move. I hiked up the hill. I was polite. I was calm. I knocked on her door. She opened it about 3 inches. She was wearing a bathrobe that probably cost more than my first truck. "Can I help you?" she asked. Not a hello, just annoyance. "Hi, I'm Jack. I own the farm next door. That SUV down there, it's blocking my equipment. I need to get through to plant today. The rain is coming back tomorrow." She took a sip of her coffee. "Oh, that. Yeah. My driveway is being paved today. The crew said I couldn't park on the asphalt for 24 hours. So I moved it to the open space." I blinked. "Ma'am, that open space is my wheat field. It's private property, and the ground is soft. You're going to get stuck." She laughed. Actually laughed. "It's an off-road vehicle, Jack. It has 4-wheel drive. It'll be fine. I'll move it tomorrow." "I can't wait until tomorrow," I said, my voice getting a little tighter. "I have a schedule. I'll lose thousands of dollars if I miss this planting window. You need to move it. Now." She started to close the door. "I'm busy. It's just dirt. Stop being dramatic. If you touch my car, I have cameras. I'll sue you for damages." The door clicked shut. I stood there for a full minute. My hands were shaking, not from cold, but from rage. She didn't just disrespect me. She threatened my livelihood. I called the sheriff. He came out an hour later. He looked at the car, looked at the mud, and sighed. "Jack, I can't tow it," he said. "The tow truck will sink in this mud. And since she's technically a neighbor and not abandoning the vehicle, this is a civil dispute. You have to take her to court." "Court takes months," I said. "I need a plan today." The sheriff shrugged. "Don't touch the car, Jack. If you damage it, you're liable." "Sorry." He drove off. I looked at that white SUV. It was a monument to entitlement. She thought she had one. She thought physics and laws didn't apply to her because she had money. But she forgot one thing. Before I took over the family farm, I spent 10 years as a structural engineer. I build bridges. I understand leverage. I understand tension. And I was about to give Brenda a lesson in both. I walked back to the barn. The anger was gone. It had been replaced by something much colder. Focus. The problem was simple. There was a 4,800-pound obstacle in my field. I couldn't drive it out. I didn't have the keys. I couldn't tow it out. My tractor tires would spin in the mud if I tried to drag dead weight that heavy. I needed to lift it, or at least apply massive force to move it without relying on tire traction. I needed a machine. I went to the boneyard. Every farm has one. It's the spot behind the shed where we keep old iron, rusted combines, timber, and steel cables. I found what I was looking for. The base of an old grain silo, heavy concrete blocks, and the boom arm of a broken crane I'd been meaning to scrap for 5 years. I pulled out a notepad. I started sketching. I wasn't building a catapult in the cartoon sense. I was building a counterweight extraction arm, think of a trebuchet. But instead of throwing a rock for distance, it uses a massive falling weight to generate a violent, uncontrollable horizontal drag. The plan was simple mechanics. A fulcrum, a long arm, the crane boom, a short arm, the counterweight, and a trigger. If I loaded the short arm with 10,000 pounds of concrete and scrap metal and released it, the long arm would swing up with enough force to snap a semi-truck in half. If I attached that long arm to her rear bumper with a steel cable, it wouldn't just tow the car. It would yeet the car. I spent the next 6 hours welding. The sparks were flying. I was in the zone. I used the tractor to stack the concrete blocks into a steel basket I fabricated. That was my counterweight. I mounted the crane boom on a massive A-frame made of railway ties. Brenda came out to her deck around 4 p.m. She had a glass of wine in her hand. She watched me working in the mud, welding this monstrosity together about 50 yards from her car. She shouted down, "Building a fence to keep me out? Good luck with that." I didn't look up. I just kept welding. Let her think I was building a fence. Let her think I was building a scarecrow. By sunset, the machine was ready. It looked terrifying. A 20-foot steel arm held down by a heavy industrial chain release. On the other end, 5 tons of concrete hovering in the air, fighting gravity, waiting to drop. The potential energy in that machine made the wood groan. You could feel the tension in the air. I grabbed a heavy-duty recovery strap, the kind we use to pull stuck combines. I waded out into the mud. The SUV was sinking deeper. I hooked the strap to the rear tow hitch of a Range Rover. I ran the cable back to my machine and hooked it to the tip of the throwing arm. There was zero slack. The cable was tight as a guitar string. I checked my math. Mass of the car, 800 pounds. Mass of my counterweight, 11,000 pounds. Mechanical advantage of the lever, 4:1. When I pulled the release, the arm wasn't going to gently pull the car. It was going to accelerate it from 0 to 40 miles per hour in about half a second. The trajectory aimed straight for the drainage ditch that ran between our properties. A deep, muddy, nasty ravine filled with runoff water. I walked up the hill one last time. I knocked on Brenda's door. She opened it, looking bored. "I told you, Jack. Move it and I sue." "I'm not moving it," I said calmly. "Gravity is. I'm giving you one last chance. Give me the keys and I'll drive it out safely. Or I pull the lever." She sneered. "Go play with your little tractor, farmer boy. Don't touch my car." "Okay," I said. "Watch from the deck. You won't want to miss this." I walked back down to the machine. The sun was setting, casting long, angry shadows across the field. The steel beast looked like something out of medieval war. Brenda was on her deck. She had her phone out. She was recording me. Perfect. That meant she was a witness to her own stubbornness. I put on my safety glasses. I put on my ear protection. I stood by the release lever. It was a simple pin mechanism. One good hammer swing, and the pin would fly out, dropping the 5-ton counterweight. I looked up at Brenda. I pointed to the car. Then I pointed to the ditch. She yelled something, but I couldn't hear it. She was probably telling her followers on Instagram that I was bluffing. I wasn't bluffing. I raised the sledgehammer. I didn't hesitate. I swung hard. Clang. The sound was deafening. The pin shot out like a bullet. For a split second, time stood still. Then, gravity took over. The 5 tons of concrete in the basket dropped. The short arm of the lever slammed down. The long arm, the throwing arm, whipped upward with the violence of a gunshot. The steel cable snapped tight. The Range Rover didn't roll. It didn't slide. It was ripped from the mud. The sound was sickening, a mixture of metal tearing, suction popping, and glass shattering. The SUV went airborne. Not high, maybe 3 feet off the ground, but fast. It flew backward, covering the 50 feet to the property line in a blink. Because the cable was attached to the lever moving in an arc, the car didn't just go straight back. It was flung. It hit the lip of the drainage ditch. The suspension exploded. The car tumbled, flipping end over end, and splashed aggressively into the ravine. It landed upside down in 3 feet of sludge, brambles, and agricultural runoff. The machine slammed into its stoppers, shaking the ground. The cable went slack. Silence returned to the valley. I looked up at the deck. Brenda wasn't recording anymore. Her phone was lowered. Her mouth was hanging open. She looked like she had seen a ghost. I unhooked the cable from my machine. I walked over to the edge of the ditch and looked down. The Range Rover was destroyed. Totaled. Every panel bent, roof crushed, filled with mud. 30 minutes later, the sheriff was back. Brenda was screaming, crying, pointing at me. He threw my car. He threw it. The sheriff looked at the car in the ditch. He looked at my machine. He looked at me. Jack, what is that? He asked, pointing to the trebuchet. That, I said, wiping grease off my hands. That's a debris removal tool. I was clearing a stump. My cable must have snagged some trash that was left in my field. Trash, Brenda shrieked. That's an $80,000 car. It was blocking an agricultural access road. I said, under State Farm Statute 14B, I have the right to clear obstructions to harvest crops. I didn't enter the vehicle. I didn't drive the vehicle. I just cleared the obstruction. The sheriff tried to hide a smile. He turned to Brenda. Ma'am, you were warned. You abandoned property in an active work zone. Jack here utilized heavy machinery on his own land. It looks like an accident caused by your negligence. I'm suing, she screamed. She tried. Oh, she tried. Her insurance company sent an adjuster out. When I showed him the photos of where she parked, deep mud, clearly marked private property, and told him she refused to move it. He laughed. They denied her claim under the off-roading and intentional risk clause. Brenda moved out 3 months later. She sold the house at a loss. I dismantled the machine, but I kept the release pin. It sits on my mantle now. A little reminder. Physics doesn't care about your money, and neither do I.